this episode, we're going to do a quick but meaningful review of the big ideas from Domain 1 by tying together governance, policies, assets, metrics, and training into one coherent picture. When you are new to cybersecurity, these topics can feel like separate boxes, with governance sounding like paperwork, policies sounding like rules, assets sounding like inventory, metrics sounding like math, and training sounding like school. The truth is that they are all parts of one system that helps an organization make safe decisions repeatedly, even when the technology changes fast. A good review is not a pile of definitions. It is a reminder of how each piece supports the others and why missing any one piece creates predictable failure. The goal here is to strengthen your mental map so you can recall what matters under pressure and explain it clearly to someone else. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Governance is the umbrella concept that describes how an organization makes decisions, assigns responsibility, and holds itself accountable. Governance is not a single document or a single committee, and it is not only about compliance. It is about setting direction, deciding who has authority, and defining what success looks like in a way that can be checked later. In an AI security context, governance answers questions like who can approve new AI use cases, who owns the risk, and what rules must be followed before a system goes live. Governance also defines what happens when things go wrong, such as who can declare an incident, who can shut down a risky service, and who must be informed. Without governance, security becomes a series of ad hoc choices, and ad hoc choices are difficult to defend and easy to repeat incorrectly. Policies translate governance into written expectations that people can follow consistently. A policy is not meant to be a long legal essay, and it is not meant to exist only for auditors. A policy is a clear statement of what is allowed, what is required, and what is forbidden, along with the scope of who and what it applies to. Good policies help people make safe choices when no security expert is present, which is exactly what you need when systems scale. For AI security, policies often address data handling, acceptable use, access control, third-party requirements, and incident reporting expectations. A beginner-friendly way to think about policies is that they reduce ambiguity, because ambiguity is where accidental misuse and risky shortcuts are born. Assets are the things you need to protect, and that includes more than hardware and software. In AI systems, assets can include models, training data, prompts, system instructions, data sets used for tuning, data pipelines, output logs, and the business processes that rely on the AI system's outputs. Assets can also include access credentials, integration points, and even the reputation and trust of the organization, because trust is harmed when an AI system behaves unpredictably. Asset management is the discipline of knowing what you have, where it is, who owns it, and what it connects to. Beginners often underestimate assets because they think only servers matter, but many AI security incidents involve data and access more than machines. If you cannot list and locate your assets, you will struggle to assess risk, and you will struggle to respond when something goes wrong. A crucial part of asset thinking is understanding asset relationships, because risk travels along connections. A model connected to a sensitive database is a different risk than the same model running on isolated sample data. A prompt log stored in a shared location is a different risk than the same log protected by strict access controls. A vendor-hosted model with broad integrations is a different risk than a locally hosted model with limited connectivity. Asset relationships also determine what evidence exists during investigations, because if you cannot trace how an output was produced, you cannot confidently explain what happened. When you review Domain 1, it helps to picture assets as a map, not a list, because maps reveal pathways for misuse and leakage. The more complex the pathways, the more important governance and policy become to control changes responsibly. Metrics are the measurements that help you know whether your governance, policies, and asset controls are working in practice. Metrics turn security from an opinion into evidence, and they help you prioritize work when you cannot fix everything at once. In Domain 1, metrics connect directly to accountability, because you can only hold people accountable for outcomes you can observe. In AI security, metrics often track usage patterns, policy violations, sensitive data detection, model behavior stability, and response speed when early signals appear. A beginner should remember that metrics are not about finding perfection, and they are not about proving that nothing bad will ever happen. Metrics are about noticing drift, misuse, and weak points early, and about proving that improvements are reducing risk over time. Training is the mechanism that turns governance and policy into real behavior, because documents do not change habits by themselves. In cybersecurity, many failures happen because people do not understand the rules or do not understand why the rules matter. Training fills that gap by explaining the purpose of controls, showing the common mistakes, and creating a shared language so teams can coordinate. For AI systems, training often focuses on safe data handling, recognizing risky prompts and outputs, understanding when to escalate concerns, and using AI tools within approved boundaries. Beginners sometimes assume training is a one-time event, but effective training is continuous because people join, roles change, and systems evolve. When training is neglected, even the best policies become theoretical, and real behavior drifts toward convenience and speed. These 5 areas are not separate responsibilities that can be handled by different teams in isolation because they reinforce one another. Governance sets who decides and what matters. Policies make expectations clear. Asset management defines what is in scope and what is at risk. Metrics show what is actually happening, and training makes safe behavior realistic. If governance is weak, policies become inconsistent and enforcement becomes arbitrary. If policies are unclear, training becomes vague and people invent their own rules. If assets are unknown, you cannot know what policies should apply or what metrics to watch. If metrics are missing, you cannot prove value or detect problems early. If training is missing, the whole system becomes fragile because it depends on a few experts rather than shared understanding. It also helps to recognize common misconceptions that cause Domain 1 efforts to fail. One misconception is that governance slows business down, when good governance actually speeds decisions by clarifying who can approve what and under what conditions. Another misconception is that policies are only for compliance, when policies can be practical and directly reduce mistakes. A third misconception is that asset inventories are boring housekeeping, when in reality inventory is what allows fast incident response and accurate risk assessment. Another misconception is that metrics are just reporting, when metrics are how you detect weak points and guide improvement. Finally, people often treat training as optional, when training is often the cheapest way to reduce common risky behaviors at scale. A simple way to remember Domain 1 is to think about what happens when a new AI capability is proposed. Governance determines who can approve it and what risk standards must be met. Policies determine what kinds of data can be used and what usage is acceptable. Asset management determines what systems, data sources, and integrations are involved and who owns each piece. Metrics determine what you will monitor to catch misuse and drift once the system is live. Training determines whether users understand how to use the capability safely and how to recognize problems. When these pieces are in place, the organization can adopt new AI uses while managing risk instead of taking blind leaps. When these pieces are missing, adoption may be fast at first, but incidents and confusion tend to follow. Domain 1 also supports incident readiness, even though it may not feel like an incident-focused domain. If governance is clear, people know who can declare an incident and who can authorize containment actions. If policies are clear, responders know what counts as a violation and what evidence matters. If assets are well mapped, responders can quickly identify where sensitive data might have flowed and what systems might be affected. If metrics are in place, responders can see early signals and establish timelines. If training is effective, people report concerns early and avoid hiding mistakes. All of this reduces the time between the start of a problem and the start of a response, which is one of the most important factors in limiting harm. A major theme you should take away is that Domain 1 is about building predictable decision-making. Technology changes quickly, especially in AI, but predictable decision-making is a stabilizer. It allows an organization to respond to new tools, new vendors, and new threats without reinventing its approach every week. It also builds trust between teams because engineers, managers, legal teams, and security teams can align on shared rules and shared evidence. Predictability is not rigidity, and good governance can adapt, but it adapts through defined processes rather than chaotic reactions. This matters for AI security because the line between safe and unsafe can be subtle, and subtle risks require consistent judgment. As you continue through this certification, keep noticing how Domain 1 ideas show up everywhere else. Risk management depends on knowing assets and having clear governance. Testing and vulnerability handling depend on policies and on the ability to measure outcomes. Incident response depends on training, on asset visibility, and on having metrics that create early warning. Vendor management depends on governance decisions, policy expectations, and the ability to track what external systems touch your data. Even when you move into more technical domains, these foundations remain the frame that keeps technical work aligned with business reality. If you ever feel lost, returning to governance, policies, assets, metrics, and training will usually help you find your way. To wrap up, Domain 1 is the foundation that makes AI security manageable because it gives you structure, clarity, visibility, evidence, and shared behavior. Governance creates accountability and decision paths. Policies turn that into clear rules. Assets define what is at stake. Metrics reveal what is happening and whether you are improving, and training turns rules into habits. Together, these elements prevent accidental misuse, reduce the impact of drift and change, and make incidents easier to detect and handle. A quick review like this is valuable because it reinforces the connections, not just the terms. When you can explain how these pieces work together, you are not just memorizing, you are building the kind of understanding that holds up in real situations.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.